Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to fix a problem that you might encounter if you've got a DT Swiss wheel, rear wheel, using the Pawl Freehub. This could be a mountain bike wheel or a road wheel, makes no difference which. So if you find that the chain, when you stop pedalling, is suddenly slapping into your chainstay, just going along on a nice flat piece of road even, and it's just the chain, as soon as you stop the pedalling, it'll be going into your chainstay and slapping, then coming back again. Or it could just be, the cassette could be just freewheeling, then stopping, freewheeling, stopping, like that, just randomly, and you wonder what the problem is and you want to know how to fix that, then I'll go ahead and I'll run through the steps in this video. So I've got a chain resting on here just to show you. So normally you'd be pedalling, going along the road, and your chain would be tight, like that. Now as soon as you stop pedalling, normally your free wheel's going so as your chain isn't smashing into your chainstay, like that. What happens when you've got a problem with the Freehub, or you presume it's a Freehub, your cassette, when you stop pedalling, freewheel slightly and then gets stuck. So as it is doing this, so your chain just keeps on smashing into your chainstay like that. It's alright when you're pedalling, but as soon as you stop pedalling, going down a hill for instance, it'll be going like that, and you wonder what it is that's causing it. So what I'll do, I'll show you and how to remedy that problem. So you might get hold of your cassette and feel that it's binding a little bit when you're trying to turn it backwards. Doesn't feel like it spins very easily. Now what you can do, if yours is like that, then obviously without using the bike, what you can do is let off your quick release skewer. So this is a quick release, so you can undo it a little bit and then tighten your lever back up again. Just let off the quick release a little bit and then see if suddenly the cassette starts spinning a lot easier than it was before. Obviously don't ride it like that, but just let it off to see if suddenly the cassette starts spinning a lot easier. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take the wheel out of the frame and I'll just show you what could be the cause of your problem. So we got the wheel out of the bike, so what I'll do is I'll just remove the quick release skewer out of the way. So this doesn't matter if this is a quick release wheel or it's a through axle wheel, it makes no difference. This just happens to be a quick release wheel. Say if it was through axle, the same thing would apply to this. Obviously you would have removed your through axle already anyway out of the bike, out of the frame, to get it out, to drop the wheel out. So say if this is a mountain bike wheel, as long as it's using, like I said earlier, a Pawl Freehub, not a ratchet Freehub, this is for a Pawl Freehub. So what you want to do is see if, by leaving the cassette on there, doesn't matter what cassette you've got on there, just see if you can put your hands behind the cassette like that. If you've had your wheel apart before, then you might be able to put your fingers behind there, lie the wheel on the floor like that, and put your fingers behind it and pull up like that, and it's just popped up like that. So that's coming off of the axle. Now if you want to remove the cassette because you need to put new bearings in it, for instance, because you don't know how old your bearings are, if you want to put new bearings in the Freehub body, then I'll just put a link up on the screen for a video of how to replace the actual bearings in that Freehub. So I'm just lifting this off and the Freehub body's still inside the cassette. So what you do is I'll just quickly show you how to remove it. So you just remove the cassette and then you just got the Freehub body if you wanted to put new bearings in it. So the alternative method to what I just did is, obviously you want to remove your cassette because you just want to have the Freehub body visible. So what you can do is you can crack the nut undone so it's loose like that, you know it's slightly loose, so you know that you can undo that cassette lock ring by hand and just tighten it back up like that. That's all you're doing, just nipping it up, so as you know that it's loose like that. And then what you can do is the same way, get hold of the cassette behind there and pop it off, and then when it comes off completely, you know that you can just undo the lock ring off the end and your cassette will come off and just leave your Freehub body. So you can pull it right off like I just did. So you would pull it right off there like that, get that off, and then it would just leave, after you remove the cassette, you just got the Freehub body in your hand. So you can replace the bearings. If you've never replaced yours, all you got to do is put the Freehub on your finger and spin it round, and you just know if the bearings are seized in there, which a lot of the times they are, because if you use your bike a lot in the wet weather, the winter, etc., then the bearings will go bad in the Freehub body in no time. Now, a way to tell if they've gone bad is obviously with the cassette mounted on there. So if you just remove the wheel from the bike, the cassette's in place as it would be normally, just get hold of the largest sprocket, whatever you've got on the back, say it's a mountain bike wheel, doesn't matter, road wheel, and just wiggle it side to side like that. You shouldn't feel any play in it. If you feel any play side to side in there, that's a sure sign that the bearings have gone in your Freehub body. If you can feel, you might feel a very, very tiny amount, but if you feel anything more than that, then the bearings would have gone bad in your Freehub body. So what I'll do is I'll just get this cassette right off and I'll show you. So there we have the cassette with the Freehub still inside. So all I'll do now, because I've already slackened the nut earlier when it was still attached, I can just undo that like that. Remove that out of the way with the first sprocket, the 11 tooth, and then all I do is just get the cassette off in one like that. And there's the Freehub body. So what you can do when you got the Freehub body like that is just put it on your finger and spin the Freehub body, and it should spin very easily. Shouldn't be any resistance on it or anything, and it should be nice and smooth. It shouldn't be notchy or anything like that. If it is, then like I said, the bearings either in this one here or the one down inside there have gone bad because the water gets inside and they rust. So you should be able to spin it. It should be lovely and smooth. So that could be part of your problem. If the bearings are really bad with a lot of rust in them, then that can cause your chain to slap into your chainstay. That can be one of the issues with it. Now, I have got a video as well, is if you've got one of these Freehub bodies and you never had it off the bike before, then what happens is, because these bearings there are steel and the axle is aluminium, so what happens is you get corrosion between the two. So if you want to know how to get one of these off and it's stuck on there and you can't get it off, then I'll just put a link up on the screen for a video to remove one of these Freehub bodies when it's stuck on there and there's no way you can get it off because it's too tight. Normally what you'll find is if you got it on there and the Freehub's on there and you got the cassette off, a lot of the times all that'll be holding it on is the end cap. So it doesn't matter if this is a quick release end cap like this one or a through axle end cap. The end cap on there, if you never had it apart before, could be holding that on and you won't be able to get it off. So what you got to do is put the wheel in a vice and just clamp up with the vice on that end cap, upside down in the vice, and clamp on that end cap, and then use the wheel, either side of the wheel, and then pull up on the wheel, obviously the other way up, like so. It'd be in the vice like that. Clamp the end cap in a vice with some soft jaws preferably so you don't crush it or damage it, and then use your hands either side of the wheel like a big lever, and then give it a sharp pull up. You have to pull quite hard, they don't come off very easily, especially if you haven't had it apart before. They can be stuck, so you've got to give it a sharp pull as hard as you can, and suddenly the end cap will pop off because they get stuck on the end of the axle, these end caps. So that doesn't matter, like I said, if it's a through axle or a quick release. You have to clamp it in a vise and get it off like that. So if you replace the Freehub body bearings in there, is one of the steps to do. Like I said, if that doesn't cure your chain smacking into your chainstay, then the other issue with them can be, if you look on the axle there, it doesn't matter what, this could be a mountain bike wheel, like I said, anything DT Swiss that uses 3-pull Freehub. Normally the lower end wheels you all use a 3-pull Freehub, so the higher end use ratchets, the lower end uses a 3-pull system like this. So like I say, it doesn't matter if it's a mountain bike wheel, rear wheel, doesn't matter, this is road wheel, this happens to be, as long as they use that Freehub. Now on the axle there, there's this spacer collar there. Now what happens with these, over time they actually wear away slightly. So they start off at a certain thickness across here, and then over time they wear away, so they're slightly thinner than they should be. So when that's on there, and then you got your Freehub body on, and then you're clamping it up with your axle, through axle or a quick release, doesn't matter. When you clamp it into the frame and you do it up, what happens is it's going on there further than it should be, and then it's binding because the space is just a fraction worn away. These are a metal spacer collar, these on here. I said this applies to the lower end wheels with the 3-pull. So that spacer can get thinner over time, and then what happens is, like I said, you put the Freehub on and then clamp it in your frame, and then you'll find suddenly you're riding, you stop riding, it's smacking into the chains, going into your chainstay. Now that's that spacer. So if you want to know what that is, that's a 10.1mm spacer. So you can buy these separately. So it's always worth getting one, a new one, especially if you've done quite a lot of miles and you wonder what like I said, the problem is. It could just be this little spacer that's the problem, not even the Freehub, just this. Especially if your bearings are good in your Freehub, then it could just be this that's a problem that's causing it to the chain to go into your chainstay. So what you want to make sure is, before you fit a new spacer on there, is just make sure you've got some grease on the axle before you slide the spacer on, and you slide that over like that in place, and then what you want to make sure is, like I said, make sure that your bearings are good inside your Freehub body. If not, definitely change those, and make sure that you've got some grease inside there before you slide it on the axle, and make sure that the collar that's in between the two bearings in there is lined up exactly with the bearings, so when you put it on it should slide straight on there like that. If it's not quite lined up, then just have to line it up in there, either with your finger, you should be able to do that, and then slide it on. Like I said, making sure you got a liberal amount of grease on the axle there as well, and put some grease up inside the actual bearings in there, between the two of them on the collar in there, and then slide that on, making sure that it goes on like that, nice and freely. Clean up your pulls on the back, and then apply grease to those 3 pulls on there. DT Swiss do a grease for those. It's a very light grease, it's not heavy thick grease, it's nice light grease, so they work properly as they should. You slide that back in place like that, and then with your end cap, make sure you grease your end cap as well. Put some grease round inside and on the end of it, outside the end cap there, before you put it back on, because it just stops it getting stuck on, and it stops it at a later date, and then you might not have to clamp it in a vise to try and get it off if you've got some grease in there, because there's rubber O-ring up in there. So you want to put some grease on that before you put it on. That same thing applies to the through axle one as well. Doesn't matter what it is, put some grease around before you put it on. Then you should just be able to pop that back in place like that. And check that it spins nice and freely. It's not binding, which it shouldn't be if you put new bearings in and a new spacer. It should be like new again. So before you fit your cassette back on there, always put some grease around the body of the Freehub, because also these Freehubs are aluminium, so what they're prone to is obviously teeth marks on them from the cassette biting into it. You can't help that, they always get those teeth marks in there. If the teeth marks are bad in there, then it might hinder you sliding the cassette back on, and also removing the cassette as well. If there's a lot of teeth marks on there, you can get a small file and just file over. If you have got a lot of those teeth marks and they're quite bad, you just file over it with a file to smooth them down a little bit on each bit that's sticking up. Just file the rough edges off, and then obviously grease it before you put your cassette back on. Like I said, they're aluminium, these bodies on these ones mainly, so they always get teeth marks in them off the cassette. So then you're ready to go ahead and refit your cassette. Obviously you can clean your cassette up as well before you refit it. So get that refitted, and obviously torque up your cassette lock ring when you're finished to the normal standard 40 Newton meters on that, and also make sure you greased the threads of the lock ring there as well before you put it on. Otherwise, I said, they can get corrosion on them depending on what you've got. You could have a steel lock ring, and like I said, it's an aluminium cassette Freehub. The Freehub body is aluminium and the lock ring could be steel, so obviously you could get corrosion between. It just depends on what cassette you've got. Some of the cassettes don't use a steel lock ring and some do. So you just get that on there, and then you tighten it up and then torque that down. Then you're ready to go ahead and refit it in your bike, making sure then that it spins as it should. Ever so freely it should spin. So once your wheel's back in your bike and your chain's refitted, then you notice the difference straight away just by even backpedaling. Because before, what you'd find is when you're backpedaling, you even feel resistance just by turning the crank backwards. You'll feel the resistance coming off the cassette, obviously because of the Freehub, just when you're backpedaling. So it should be easy back pedal. So if you found the video helpful, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.